I rise today to speak on behalf of the approximately 20,000 military families whose loved ones are on the autism spectrum. Sadly, thousands of these Americans suffering from autism are not receiving the treatment that are the best practices that have been determined that they need. These military families are receiving fewer services than their civilian government counterparts across the country, many of whom have been rightly aided by laws passed in over 60% of our states, representing over 75% of the country's population. Autism places tremendous strain on our nation's military families and non-military families, including tremendous health, financial, and emotional tolls. I want to share with you briefly just a couple of stories from our brave military families. One veteran was severely wounded in Iraq while heroically serving our country. His injuries forced him to medically retire. Because he is retired, his autistic son, Shane, was no longer eligible to receive the ABA services that he had previously received. The wait list for Medicaid waiver services is over 9 years. Shane's family had to sell their home to pay the roughly $5,000 per month of out-of-pocket expenses that the ABA treatments require that he so desperately needs. The money is running out for their family, and their family's effort is only to do what's best for their son. Without any relief, we risk allowing brave military families just like this one to fall through the cracks. Another active duty Marine who served in Iraq and Afghanistan 3 times has maxed out his ABA therapy treatments to treat his 11-year-old autistic son, Joshua. Joshua is nonverbal, and his safety is a key concern. So Joshua's prescribed 35 hours of these ABA therapy treatments each week. Due to the severity of Joshua's symptoms, the family is faced with the nearly impossible decision of foregoing the recommended care for their son or paying the bills out of pocket as long as they are able to. In my opinion, and it's shared by many, many families, this should never happen to any child, but it should also particularly not happen to the child of someone from our military service. That's why I'm introducing an amendment requiring TRICARE to cover medically recommended autism treatments, including the ABA therapy, in a manner that's consistent with the best practices, so that our military families, our heroes, get the care that they need for their children, children like Shane and Joshua. Every parent who has a child with autism faces challenges to ensuring that their child has access to the treatments that they desperately need. For military families, these challenges are often compounded by frequent deployments overseas, frequent movements to different bases across state lines, and sometimes gaps in coverage. Today, TRICARE coverage of ABA is severely limited. It's capped at $36,000 per year for an active duty service member. This falls far below what's medically recommended. This care is limited to active duty service members only. Guard and reserve families receive intermittent care, and children of retirees cannot get any coverage at all. As a consequence, military service members must often turn to state-run Medicaid programs to help their children, but these programs are often unavailable to a mobile military family because of the extensive wait lists. In Maryland, for example, the wait is 7 years long, essentially eliminating ABA coverage during the early developmental years when a child needs it the most. The wait list in Virginia, for example, is over 10 years long. Even more remarkable than TRICARE not covering these treatments is that the Office of Personnel and Management has already determined that such treatments may be covered as medical therapies for federal civilian employees. A recent court decision, which DOD is still reviewing and may appeal, determined that TRICARE must cover these treatments, but this decision is being applied under the most narrow definition in the interim, limiting the potential pool of providers. Now, this amendment basically requires TRICARE to provide the coverage and deliver services in a manner that's just consistent with best practices. This would thereby improve our access for our military families, and it would finally align TRICARE with the other types of coverage that's available in civilian sectors. We have a duty to stand by our military families and address this very difficult health issue that affects their children. When we ask our men and women to serve, we promise that we will support them and their families. This amendment simply fulfills that promise.